The content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, sensitive topics, and explicit language that may be triggering, offensive, or sensitive subjects to some viewers and listeners. Discretion is advised. The purpose of this podcast is to explore and discuss true crime cases for entertainment and educational purposes only. This podcast does not intend to glorify or sensationalize crime, but rather aims to analyze and understand the complexities of human behavior and the criminal justice system. We encourage listeners to approach this content with empathy, critical thinking, respect for the victims and their families. Tonight, we're diving into the dark and twisted mind of Rodney Alcala, also known as the dating game killer. Now, with the new Netflix hit Woman of the Hour with Anna Kendrick, it gives you just a little taste, a tease of what Rodney Alcala was capable of. With a chilling ability to charm and the insatiable desire for control, Alcala left a trail of victims that baffled investigators for years. Our focus is The Killing Game, the true story of Rodney Alcala, written by the true crime expert Alan R. Warren, which he unravels the disturbing details behind one of America's most cunning serial killers. Grab yourself a glass of wine and brace yourself as we explore how Alcala hid in plain sight, even appearing on national television, all while living a double life of seduction and murder. It's time to start the show. Let's hit it. Hi, I'm Winnie Schrader, and welcome to another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. Well, last week when we had Matt Murphy on, we kind of touched on the new Netflix movie, The Woman of the Hour, starring Anna Kendrick and Daniel Zavato. And it's about Rodney Alcala, who was a serial killer on the dating game. And the movie, I liked the movie. It almost felt like a teaser. And I was like, well, I want to know more about this Rodney guy. So I looked up, I'm like, who can I get on that wrote a book about it? And of course, my illustrious friend Alan R. Warren, of course, wrote a book about it. So I asked him to come on and kind of delve in more of the psyche of Rodney Alcala and what he did to these women and go more into depth because the movie, that's just like a teaser. That it has, I mean, this guy was brutal. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Well, hey, good to be here.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted you because I have followed your books and your careers. You've been on my husband's show when he was doing the true crime quite a bit. And so I've always loved your style of research and how you write these crime stories. And so that's why I really wanted you on because you have you're not very just technical, you give emotion in your books. And, when I read them, I'm like, wow, I'm really feeling like I'm part of this case. So that's why I really wanted you on the show. So now with Rodney, when did this all start with him? Like, what is his background? This guy seems like he's like been kind of dodging and doing what he's been doing for like many more years before this whole dating game thing even happened.
Well, to start with him, when he was in school, he wasn't a bad person. He didn't do any of this stuff in school. He was a good student and had lots of girlfriends, lots of friends. He was popular. He did well. We couldn't find any sort of history of him doing anything crazy like he was through the dating game or being off like that.
Really?
So his early age, he was really good. He wasn't strange at all.
Re really? And
Yeah.
so, like, he had no abuse or, like, what would
No.
cause a kid
No.
to all of a sudden go
Well,
on.
he wasn't he had actually his parents were quite good. His grandmother lived with
Aw,
them. They had a good life. His family was all pretty good. Um, and the first thing that I found that was kind of had an effect on him
mhm,
was when his grandmother was diagnosed with a cancer and was going to not make it. Like this was not a survivable diagnosis.
okay,
So they went back to Mexico where his family came from originally because she wanted to die in her original home, in her original
mhm,
place and setting and around her family and stuff like that. So the whole family went back down to Mexico and they picked up life there. And him and his siblings went to a Catholic school there. So it was a decent school. It wasn't just so they continued life as normal. But that's
okay,
got to have changed his life a little because you go to Mexico, from
yeah,
being, and all that. So that was the first change. But the next one that happened probably had more of an effect was during that time before grandma passed, his father up and moved back to the States by himself without
okay,
his mother or siblings. He just basically went back to the US and left all the kids and wife back with grandma. And so what had happened was the parents had split up, but they didn't want to tell the kids or anybody. So they didn't tell them that. They just thought dad was going back to make money in California, and that was that. So they didn't really think anything of it until grandma passed. And once she passed, everybody wanted to go back to the States, of course.
okay,
So the mother moved back, but she didn't move in with the father. She got her own place, and the kids came with her. So that was the first
okay,
clue. Then the kids started realizing that their parents were no longer together. And so I think that was the first bump in the road, so to speak, that causing an issue with the family itself. But he still did well at school. He finished, he graduated, everything was fine. He didn't have any there was no registered problems. Like he never had any problems finishing school and with friends or any everybody talks well about him. So that was
mhm.
fine. He joined the military
Oh, okay,
because he wanted to be a paratrooper. Was kind of
okay.
something in his mind, right? That I want that's what I want to be. I don't know, maybe like GI Joe. So so he joined that, and they sent him back east, and he was working in the military, like he was working in stock rooms and in different
Mhm,
job capacities, learning paratroopers thing. During that time, his father died. And so he
oh,
flew back. They did the funeral, and of course, everyone's upset. It's bad, it's depressing. The whole funeral thing went well as the funeral could go, of course. And then
mhm,
after that was all said and done, Dad's buried. He flew back and went back to the military, and everything life continued on. And this is where the first bizarre thing happened. What
okay,
happened was his mother was home cooking dinner,
okay,
right, for the other kids and everything, and all of a sudden, who comes in the back door is Rodney, and she's like,
okay.
"What? What?" Yeah, she's like, "What are you doing here? That you're back in you're supposed to be in military. You're in military
Yeah.
still." And he's like, no, I just left." And she said, "What do you
He
mean?"
went AWOL?
"Yeah, he just walked out, upped and left, took his bag and left." Yeah, because you can't do
Oh,
that. You can't, you're
no.
going to be wanted. You're going to be in trouble and all that stuff. So the next day, she took him into the local military. I think it was an army branch, and said, "My
Mhm,
son left," and she sort of said, "His father died, funeral. He went back, and then he came back home. I don't know what's going on." So they took him, and they analyzed him,
okay,
and they said that he had an issue, like a couple of issues actually. They weren't heavy duty, they weren't like your mentally disabled type thing. We're
Yeah.
talking about some social anxiety, and they had a list of things, and you need some treatment. So he got to take some time off and go on some meds and see a counselor, that sort of thing, and that.
Okay.
So that's really the first kind of weird thing that happened in a pretty good life up till then. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
there
Yeah.
wouldn't, there was no, he wasn't like hurting animals or, being mean to other kids or
Yeah,
girls
he was
in
just
school.
going through like what all of us go through, we losing family members, dealing with sick, cancer and all that. So, yeah, really what he was going through is not really much more than what everybody goes through. So it's not
Yeah,
like, yeah, like you said, like it's not like he was traumatized, but
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
what's your level of trauma? I don't know. And did he have behavioral issues when he was in like boot camp? Did they have
No,
issues with them
actually,
there?
no. And when you talk to them and talk to the officers, and what they will say is, they say that he was a really good performer. And when he worked in the jobs of administrating equipment and stuff, that was where he worked in. He was quite good at it. He was efficient. He was well liked, not an issue. Um,
Mhm.
when he came back after the funeral, for the few days he worked before he went AWOL, he was. They described him almost as lethargic, as not interested in anything, and not doing his job, and not really caring, and not really paying attention or listening to others. So again, that I can understand that
Yeah,
if
it
if you're
sounds like
close to your dad.
depression
Yeah.
and grief and
So maybe he went back too soon.
mhm.
I'm not a professional, but
Yeah,
maybe it was just too much too quick for him to go back into the military, into that kind of structure after the death. I don't know, and I know,
mhm.
but I don't know if we ever really will know at this point, because he was never examined enough about that part of his life to give us any answers, you know.
Okay, so was he just discharged then from the military or, like, what was kind of
Eventually he was, eventually, because he
okay,
did go back. He went back 2 times. If you go really deep into it, he ended up going back 2 different times, and in both times, he had some issues while he was performing his duty, and again was analyzed, both times, and the 3rd time overall, they decided he was, unfit to be in the military, and so they, discharged him and, sent him home. So, yeah,
okay,
eventually he was, even with treatment, meds, the whole thing, and all this stuff. He never did recapture any sort of quality at his job with the military.
yeah. Now, the documentary that you are featured in, which I'll definitely put a link into, it's on Amazon Prime. It's called Dating Death. And one thing that just triggered my mind is a question I had that when he was discharged, he was honorably discharged.
Right.
So he was able to take full advantage of all the GI benefits, like pay for college and the GI Bill and all that stuff. So so now that he's or honorably discharged from the military, what does he decide to do with his life? Like, he seems like he's grief and depressed. Like, what triggers him to become a functioning person and go forth and go to
Well,
college? I mean,
I was gonna say, I
like
don't know if he ever really became functioning ever, really. Um,
yeah,
everything he took on to, either to make other people happy, or to create
mhm,
an image that he was doing something,
okay,
but he wasn't really. It was always a means to an ends to a
yeah,
mean, that sort of thing. He was
yeah,
doing something with something else in mind. He didn't care about what he was doing. He was, first of all, before yet people have to realize that he was, very charming. He had a lot of charisma, and he was able to manipulate people quite easily. And I
Mhm.
say that in the fact that he would walk into a job, like he got a job at the LA Times as a typesetter, and this is a few years later, but he was able to walk in there and get on the spot. They didn't even check his credentials.
Really?
Yeah,
I
and then
didn't
this
know
is
that.
this is after he'd already been convicted of some felonies, and they didn't even
Eh,
know.
they didn't do background checks or anything?
No, they liked him so much they hired him.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So but he was always that way, and you might think, well, because when you see him on the game show, on the dating game later, eh,
yeah.
for me, I always thought he's kind of creepy. You know,
Yeah.
for me, the performance he did and the things he said were kind of like icky. It's like,
Yeah, his eyes like,
yeah, he was just, he's a strange duck by then, right? And by then he's already
yeah.
started his murdering thing, so he's already over the end. But I'm just thinking that I hear and I heard there are so many people you talk to pre-dating game for the
Mhm.
jobs and the different people he'd come across. They all thought he was an incredible person. He'd do
Mhm.
anything for him. He's so nice.
Yeah.
You get all that, and it's like, really? On the dating game, he's just a creep. So I don't. I was really confused with that because it's all within a few years. Like,
Well, and watching clips, it's almost like he was a chameleon. He would adapt to his environment. So it's like and that's how he learned how to manipulate people so well. So like in certain settings, he just knew how to act. And I don't
totally,
that's
totally.
I don't even that doesn't even sound like it's a human trait.
Well, the thing
You know
is,
what I mean?
well, this is sort of what I mean, and the manipulation and what he did, the adaptation that he had to do to get into each little thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
he went to New York for a while, and he was doing stuff. He adapted his whole life. So, in general, his MO was to go for younger girls.
Mhm.
Um, we're talking ages 6 to 13.
Mm.
It was really his prime. That was his focus. But when he was in New York, he wanted to continue his murder thing. He couldn't. I guess it was an addiction, a need to do what he did.
Yeah.
So what he did was, when we talk adapting, he adapted himself to the 44 caliber killer who ended
Mhm.
up, who was a big killer in New York at the time. So he killed the same victims that the 44 caliber killer killed. They were older. Like, he would select, so the police and the investigation, when the girls start going missing, they just assumed it was the same serial killer. They didn't think there was another guy trying to do that.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by, so he adapted. He thought, well, what can I do to keep up, feel his urge, his need? So he would just see what's going on in the city and do the same type, have the same type of victim as
Yeah,
was
and
popular.
yeah, and I just watched the movie Maxine, which that's exactly what you're talking about. It's talking about the Night Stalker and how the movie premise is this woman who is worked in the adult film industry and stripper and stuff. She's
Yeah.
trying to be an actress.
Yeah.
And there's a serial killer following her, and it's almost like, is this the Night Stalker? And then all of a sudden you find out, no, Night Stalker, that wasn't the Night Stalker. It was ended up, well, I can't say,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that parallel, I like it when they do that. And so it kind of just shows like the grasp of serial killers just grew and grew and grew from the 60s to the 80s.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
and to watch some of these serial killers, like, yeah, they were trying to hide their killings behind other killings or doing it the same way. So
Yeah.
police were screwed up and jumbled. So So he started doing that.
He was
Now,
doing that even in California, the Hillside Strangler. He actually, a couple of his victims were put in with that too. They didn't realize
oh my
until
God.
later that two of his victims were actually not Hillside Stranglers. They were his victims, that he made it look like Hillside Stranglers, like even leaving the body in the same location with the same kind of wounds. So he was very adaptable is a great word. He would very much take in that the atmosphere, understand what he needed to do to accomplish his goals of murdering, and he just slid right in and did it the way he needed to do it in order to get away with it. So he was, I know Matt Murphy, and now some of the people say he had a genius IQ. I don't know that he really had a genius IQ. I think that he had a great perception. He was able to
Mhm.
read the room incredible.
Right.
This was the same as in
Mhm.
the city and his job. Everywhere he went, he could read the room, understand what people wanted, needed, and fill that in order to get his, to get his win, so to speak.
Right.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And um uh, so when his whole like his career path, I guess he chose photography, is that correct? That was
Yeah,
kind of its
yeah.
thing.
Photography was his, and that was his angle. That was something he was fairly
Okay.
good at. He was really good at it and very believable. And he would show his photos at the LA Times, different places, and went to school in New York and was led into that famous director had
Oh,
a
Roman Polanski.
yeah, Polanski's thing. So he
Yeah.
was accepted. You gotta think like 300 people applied, and he only got 25. The top 25 were like he was one of them. So he was very good at it. But
Yeah.
again, how much did he really care about it? Because he used that. That was his way of getting his victims. Is his photography.
Right. You're right. Yeah. He was that guy. Oh, you're beautiful. I mean, you want to
Yeah,
be my subject? I'll take some pictures of the model.
yeah. And it's fun. It's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny for me in the sense that I remember being young in the '60s, and you hear the story. It was kind of the joke. Oh, you're beautiful. I'll take your picture. And then the guy takes advantage of the person he's taking the picture of. You know what I mean? That was kind of a thing that even I knew as a 6-year-old kid in the '60s. But he was the
Right.
guy that was doing it. He was the originator of it. He started this whole thing,
That's
and
so
and he
icky.
yeah, it's just so gross. But he would go up to people with all sorts of things. Like he approached the two girls on the beach and said, "Listen, you guys could win a contest." So he didn't just go up
Uh-huh.
and go, "Well, you're beautiful and you could be a model on that." He would go, I've there's this contest going on for whatever, LA Times, and it's like $250 each. It's a lot of money back then. And you would win easily. I'll take your pictures. I'll put it in, and and then I'll get the credit and all. So he really had his thing down. It was very believable. It wasn't just the old icky, "Hey babe, let me take your
Yeah.
picture and I'll get you in a movie," that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He actually had a real story that was very
Very
plausible. It was,
scripted. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
and it was like, and you'd believe it. You'd be like, maybe a 12-year-old on the beach with your friend, and he's like, "Hey, you could win $250," and you're like, "Wow, that's a lot." And just a contest for a paper, and you don't feel threatened.
mhm.
So
Well,
yeah.
now with now in your book, The Killing Game, how detailed do you go into his actual crime scenes? Like what was his like when he got came back to LA? Because how many did he kill in New York? Do they know?
Well,
Like
we don't know at this point. I think
Mhm.
two. He was convicted of two of them, but we
Okay.
believe there was a third, and there's probably more. It's one of those things that this is really terrible to say, but at this point, they find, they have victims that we don't really know, and they have to go run DNA and tests, and if they find some of his around the scene, then they have to retry that case or try it, and it's too expensive, so they don't.
Oh
Okay.
god.
So it's
Mm.
kind of one of those, it's too past. He's already dead. And it's kind of one of those, do they
Yeah.
do it or don't? And a lot of times they don't. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the scenario there. But DNA was found with a lot of victims that he was never convicted of since then, because it's just too time consuming and too much money. And I guess that's as tacky as that sounds. But two of them for sure that he murdered
Mhm.
out of New York. Yeah.
Wow. Gosh. And then, okay, so he comes back to LA. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a quick break, but when we come back, we're gonna kind of see what starts happening when he's back in LA, leading up to the dating game and his final, like how he got caught, basically. I mean, and man, he had some survivors. Not everybody died at the hands of Rodney Alcala. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with Alan Arwara with his book, The Killing Game.
Have you ever felt like something or someone was trying to tell you something? That inner nudge, that quiet whisper from the universe, with intuition sharpened by years of spiritual connection and a deep-rooted gift. Winnie Schrader delivers readings that are compassionate, insightful, and shockingly accurate. Whether you're facing a crossroads healing from heartache, or just curious what the cards reveal, Winnie creates a safe, sacred space to explore your journey. This isn't fortune cookie fluff. This is honest, intuitive guidance from someone who's helped hundreds find clarity, closure, and confidence. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Book your session now at lovelotustarot.com and take control of your journey. That's lovelotustarot.com. Winnie's sessions are personal, powerful, and often life-changing. That's lovelotustarot.com.
Do you know that radio just got a little extraterrestrial? That's right, Dave Schrader is back on radio with the Paranormal 360 every Sunday evening, 7 to 9 p.m. Central on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station. Just download the Odyssey app and look for the WCCO logo, follow the station, and listen live. That's the Paranormal 360 on WCCO AM 830, an Odyssey station. Hi, and we're back. We have Alan R. Warren with his book, The Killing Game. It's talking about Rodney Alcala, the dating game murderer or serial killer, whatever you want to call him. So we were kind of before the break, we kind of wanted to talk about some of like his victims, his first victims. Some have survived and survived some of his attacks. So I kind of want to go down that and leading up to him being on the dating game, what led up to that, and then eventually him getting caught. So, Alan, his first victim, they believe it was in 1968. And like you said earlier, he had two types of victims. Seems like he had a softer, younger side. And then it almost seemed like he had this, darker side with older women and women that can actually really fight back and piss him off or that's almost like what it seemed like. So is that, with his first victim, what kind of victim did he start with this type of killings?
Well, the first victim that we know about is the Tally Shapiro, and that was, like you said, 1968, and she was walking home
Mhm.
from school. It was one of those. It was September, late September, and if I'm right, if I remember right, her parents, they were living in a hotel, and the reason they were doing that was because their house had burned down. So they were in a location that they didn't really, they weren't real familiar with. And
Okay.
so on her way home, she was walking. Rodney Alcala saw her, and he pulled up and offered her a ride, and she got in. And now, before people jump on it and say, well, back then in the 60s, that was not unusual for people to hitchhike or get a ride. And it wasn't considered the same danger that we know about now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Yeah.
it wasn't like she was doing anything
Stranger danger.
wrong. Yeah, it wasn't a, that one wasn't a thing. It just
No.
wasn't a thing. So he was a nice guy and he's going to give her a ride home.
Right.
Okay. And so so she got in, and I guess on his way there, he said, "Oh, I have to pick up something in my apartment." And so then he stopped by to where he was staying, and wanted her to come in. And I forget, he was going to offer her something, some sort of candy or something to make her want to come in. And I know that she wasn't really feeling like going in with him, but he kind of forced her to go into his apartment. So, but what had happened was, a guy, an innocent bystander, so to speak, someone that had nothing to do with the situation, had seen this going on and called the police from a payphone. I know, that was back when they had payphones. And
Wow.
yeah, and so
Well,
the police,
what makes me think of it is like now people would just record on their cell phones and not call. This guy went to a payphone,
yeah,
put money in a payphone, dialed 911, called and said, "I'm seeing something and I'm reporting this." People
yeah.
don't do that now. They just
No, and I thought
like,
that was really kind of cool in a sense, because
yeah.
this guy's all of a sudden going and calling the police. And that, yeah, nowadays you'd film it and put it on Facebook, and I
Right?
and say something rude. I don't know, but anyway, so and the detectives came to his place, and that Camacho was the detective that's still alive and was doing a lot of shows, Chris Camacho. And so they went to the door, and Rodney was attacking her, and I guess he wouldn't answer the door. And eventually he did unlock the door, and they forced their way in. And he got away because, as Camacho said, that the Tally was laying on the floor. It looked like she was dead, but then she made a big noise, like a grunting noise, which made both cops run to her to see if they could save her and see what she's still alive. He slipped out the back. So he did get away from that scene, so to speak, at that time. He
Yeah.
did get caught later. But you see, this case is really kind of what started it, but it also what caused the problem, because Tally Shapiro survived, and her family moved out of the country after she was healthy enough. So when he was caught for this crime, they couldn't get them to be witnesses. So they couldn't charge him with the full assault that he should have. So he ended up getting it's just a misdemeanor charge. He ended up serving, I think, 14, 16 months in prison for this. And it was just some sort of an assault of a minor. And so it wasn't what it should have been. And this kind of caused the problem, because then he gets out, and then he continues his rampage. And, he could have been stopped if it was done correctly at the time. There's nobody's fault. It's just the way it happened.
Right, because then they would have had to bring them back and have her relive all, the
Yeah.
trauma and stuff that happened. Well, that's even if she could really remember a lot, because she had he, bashed her skull, right, with, some type of rod or something?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 It's amazing she survived. And,
Oh.
and, yeah, just the whole thing. And in fact, the parents wouldn't bring her back, because they were contacted, and they
Mhm.
wouldn't bring her back. So that was just it. Wasn't going to happen. So they were left with what they had. And
Mhm.
and the worst. Okay, so when we talk about his personality, when he gets out of serving that time,
Mhm.
what's he do? He goes back east, and he
Mhm.
ends up working for he's a counselor for a girls' school, like a teenage girls' school in the summer school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, he goes under the name Berger or Berger, depends on how you pronounce it, but he was Mr. Berger, the counselor at a summer school for girls, teenage
Mm.
girls. I can, and you think, wow, really? But he talked himself into
Oh.
that job too, and they never run anything. And so and that's where he started going to New York, and he started killing the other girls. And it was only by accident that two of the girls at the school had recognized him, one of his pictures, because he was originally on the FBI most wanted list
Mhm.
for the first assault. So they told the guy that runs the school, and then that guy called the FBI, and of course, so he did get arrested and taken
Yeah.
out of the school. But the whole thing, his whole life as a criminal here was um, a lot of it was I don't want to say helped, but it sort of was um, supported by the whole process of criminal and mental institutions of the time, because
Right.
nobody really held him. You know what I mean? He got short little bits of prison or institutional times, and was always allowed out, and always went right back to work within a day, within 2 days. He was able to get a job and go right back to his same old, way of behaving. And
Mhm.
and his MO was that in general for the younger girls, was to go up to them and offer the contest or a picture or a photo and get them into it. And some ran away and some didn't. And you know,
Mhm.
how many victims he had in total, we don't really know. Um,
Mhm.
but the older victims, like the New York girls and some of the others that he had, um, he tended to be a lot rougher with them. It's one thing about, you were talking about Woman of the Hour, the Kendrick movie. One thing she did kind of try to show was the way he treated his victims,
Yep.
the way he beat them and choke them and have get them unconscious but not dead, and then he would torture them and then do it all over again. And some of them he would do the same process to maybe 4 or 5 times. So he really wanted to punish them for some reason.
Yeah,
And
and wasn't he also, like, placing their bodies in very,
yeah, always. Yeah,
yeah,
and
like,
this
not flattering positions?
no, he would make sure that he would place them in a way, in a position that would shock the person that found them. So like the one woman that was in the laundry room downstairs, he had stripped her and had her bent over on kind of her knees, laying backwards with her private parts, aimed right at the person that walked in the door, and she had her right hand pointing at it. Do you know what I mean? So
Oh,
So
yeah.
as soon as you come into the room, you've got this naked woman laying there who's dead, pointing at her own
Oh.
vagina with her finger and aimed right at you. And you're like, what? Do you know what I mean? He wanted to do, yeah, he wanted to do this sort of thing. One of the victims he put at that little park that's right across from Marlon Brando's house, in the same position between the trees, aimed at his front door.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
god.
so you open his front door and that's what you would see
What's wrong
across the
with him?
this is
God.
well, this is it. What is wrong with him?
Oh,
So,
I don't
but how he, that's a really interesting, that in itself is a question, because you think about, there's this guy that was a good student, really good,
right.
joining the army, had all these skills as a photographer, all this stuff, and that was really normal and not a problem for 20 years of his life. All of a sudden, he's turned into doing these sort of crimes.
Yeah,
Why?
that doesn't make sense. It, like,
Exactly.
is there something has anybody been able
No,
to find, like, any type of no journals or anything of
nothing.
his?
Nothing. And in fact,
Oh,
you can remember one of the biggest problems, I think, from my point of view, in the criminal justice system in the US, Canada, UK, Australia, all that stuff, is that a lot of these killers, from Charles Manson right up to Alcala, to anybody like that, they get put in prison and they don't have to be examined. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? We're in a place where how would we ever know why he did what he did? We
Right.
make guesses. A lot of times it goes to, oh, the mother was a drunk, or the father beat him, or it's all these things.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. That's not enough, because there's too many people in this country that had those same issues, and sometimes even worse than what, let's say, Kella had a great young life, really. Lived middle class, upper middle class, had anything he wanted, a car
Mhm.
at 16, like he had it all. There was nothing he was in longing for, and he wasn't being abused or beaten. So there's plenty out there that do have a much worse life. And why don't they become murderers or killers?
Right.
Do you know you
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
what's different? How are they perceiving it one way when this and it's like the same circumstance, but this person is perceiving it a completely different way. It's so
Right.
out of left field. You're like, I'll call I mean, like, who does that? And it's like, is there something that just happened to him, like a triggering moment
You're right.
that
And
caused him to just go
that's right.
sicko?
And so
Yeah.
so my opinion always gets me into trouble when I get on here, and I'll say something like, well, they should just kill the people that like this. Why are we keeping them alive? And then, people are, well, we don't do that. And it's like, okay, so let's say I agree that we live in a country where we don't want to kill these killers. We're going to put them in prison. But when we know that what they've done, like there's no question about the
Mhm.
murders he's done, for instance. Why can't we have some sort of examination of these people, psychological? Why aren't they forced to have treatment to find out, not necessarily to make them better, but to find out why they went
Right.
that way? If we could determine something better than just saying, well, the mother was mean, or something,
Mhm.
some sort of thing like this. We need to have more. And I guess that's hoping for too much, but I always sort of think that,
Yeah, and that's why I like Mindhunter because with
yeah,
Jack Douglas having the behavioral sciences department with the FBI,
right,
learning why these serial killers do what they do, because it's not normal human behavior. Are there triggering events? Is there some type of, pattern going on? Like, okay, we're starting to see sexually abused children, gravitating to this type of criminal or, not normal behaviors, whether
right.
it's psychosis or whatnot. Um,
Well,
no,
here's one. Maybe they're the normal ones, and the rest of us aren't. Maybe
maybe, I
maybe
don't know.
we need the treatment, and they're living the way humans are supposed to live, and we're not.
Oh gosh. Well, I'll be an outsider. I don't I don't want to be normal. Gosh. Ooh,
Yeah.
living around, walking around like that.
Yeah.
Not
Oh,
for
and
me.
yeah. So you asked, actually, before the break. I know you were saying something about, well, how thorough, or how detailed do I get? What I did do was I put the at the end of each chapter's, the murder, like when I have a
Mhm.
victim. What I did was, or in the chapter, I would put the autopsy, kind of the medical examiner or autopsy's report, so that you would understand how badly they had been, um, how do you say, treated, or how badly they had been abused,
Yeah.
even, and so what they had happened to them while they were alive still, and how they were left. Not so much that I wanted to get into detail, because it's kind of, especially when you're talking about there's victims that are still alive, and people,
Mhm.
families that are still alive. It's just that you needed to know that, what the autopsy report said, like how badly damaged they were, and what he had done. Because a lot of them, he had broken their bones, right? He cut their necks, he lacerated their skulls, he had broken their jaw, he had pierced the back of their neck with different things, as well as their vagina and different parts. So he did a lot of these things while they were still alive. Like he would, make
Oh,
them pass
heck
out, and then
no.
so I didn't go make it into a story. as in,
Yeah.
he laid there and did this. What I did was I put, okay, here's the autopsy report at the end. Here's what actually happened to their bodies and the marks and the things that he did and the injuries and which ones were done while they were still alive and which ones were done after death, because there was, but most of them, like, most of them, like the fractures where he would hit them in the head with it hit them in the skull with their hammer, and they would still be alive. And then when he gets them around again, then he would do something else to them. He would a lot of it was taking their curling irons and putting it up their private parts while they were hot. Well, burning them. Yeah, and they were still alive.
That's just flat out evil.
Well, that's what I mean. So when you got this, that's what you'll expect in the chapters, but I don't do it just so you know. It's not like I'm describing it. Oh, he did this and that.
Yeah.
Here's the autopsy report. This is what happened. This is what was done before they died, after they died. It's important only because it's important to know of how badly he tortured these women. I mean, that's kind of the key.
There's no rehabilitation.
No, that's kind of what I mean. When you go through this and you kind of go, wow, this guy was just psychotic. He didn't care about what kind of damage he was doing to them and how it was. He wanted them to feel it too, because he didn't want to, he wanted to keep bringing them back, reviving them and do it again.
He killed them, and it's almost like he had a god complex. Like, I can take your life and I can give it back. I can take your life and I mean, what kind of torture? Oh my!
It was terrible. That's what I mean. When you read the torture parts of what he had done while they were still alive with some of these victims, you're going to go, wow, oh my God, this is terrible. And the show didn't end then, because one of the smart things one of the detectives did was when they were interviewing him at his house at one of these times, is he had spotted a locker room receipt. And so he wrote it down because they didn't have a search. They weren't allowed to take it. And they searched for it, and it was in Seattle, and he had rented a storage locker in Seattle. And so when they got the search to go look at that, what they had done is they'd found hundreds of pictures of people that he had taken pictures of naked or in a very, very, revealing, and doing different, poses. And they were boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just girls. He had boys too. So he had all those things. And so that's what they eventually released. They put it on the FBI website saying, hey, do you know any of these people? Because the ones they couldn't identify, they wanted to know if they ended up being a victim. Right. Because, so they had posted, I think they had actually posted 130 of the photos. That's how many were not accounted for. So he was pretty out there.
Pretty prolific as a serial killer, that's for sure.
Yeah, and all this time, during this time, just so people know, he had a girlfriend.
Oh God.
I know. He actually had a girlfriend, and he would lie to her too, of course. But he would, he would tell her he's going to I'm flying to Dallas to check out a site to maybe open up a photo shop there in a mall. They're okay, have a good trip. And he would go on a killing spree. He's really going out doing some murdering here. It was nothing to do with going to find a photo shop. You know what I mean? So, so he had a girlfriend at the whole time. It's incredible. And then the dating game.
I hopped on the dating game, and and then I was thinking when you were telling me how he hops around and goes around, it kind of reminds me of Israel Keys.
Yeah.
How maniacal and how he would just travel, and it was like he would travel to a place to a murder, and then he'd go to another place. So like it was so hard to track. And that
Yeah.
seemed what maybe he took a playbook out of Alcala.
Well, in a way,
it
he
was
did it.
great.
He did it differently in the sense that he would find a traditional victim, I guess we can call it, someone in that town, whatever town he's in, that
Yeah.
was being killed a certain way, certain age, certain look, and he would do that. Whereas
Mhm.
Keyes would just find someone and then get someone else blamed for it.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? He
Yeah,
was a little.
but like being that so flighty and covering your tracks. I mean, that can't be easy to do, being a serial killer and just constantly on the move, on the go, just making sure you don't get caught, but you still have to fill that need, It's
Yeah.
it's crazy how their thought process is.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's what I mean, and that's one of those things that we just have to guess at, kind of try and
right,
put yourself
right.
into that place and try to
Well,
figure out, you know.
yeah, so the dating game, how did he gets on the dating game. And what was the contestant? What was the gal's name that was on the show at the time that Anna
Cheryl
Kendrick was married to?
Cheryl Bradshaw was the
Okay.
contestant's name. Yeah.
Okay, Cheryl Bradshaw. So she comes on, of course, the dating game. You have a woman that comes on and she asks a question and she can't see the contestants. She
Right.
has 3 contestants. And my favorite one was when John Ritter was on it. But yeah, so he's on there. Is he like shining and like standing out from the other guys, or was he kind of still timid and cool? Like what personality came out when he was on stage?
Well, he actually acted fine for the time, and this is like fall of '78, so that, disco's in. He had high heel shoes, long hair. He had the look and all that, but she
Mhm.
doesn't get to see the look. And in the movie, they made it look like it was a really long, drawn out thing, and it's not. It's something that takes place and it's all over within like 2 hours type thing. So
Mhm.
it's not
Yeah.
quite like that in the movie. And as well, I will say in the movie, um, they had her go out for a drink with him that night, and that
Mm,
never happened. So
okay.
that whole thing was no, it never happened.
Never.
And in fact, he answered the questions to me. If the thing is, if you watch that, it's all over YouTube, and you can watch
Mhm.
Rodney Alcala on the dating game, and that he answered questions very. It's almost, I don't know, how do you say it? It's kind of gross, kind of cheesy, kind of sleazy.
Smarmy, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
just like, ooh,
car salesman. Ugh.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
just a
just
70s car
yeah.
salesman feel,
Yeah, and I was like, "Ooh, that's just it,"
Yeah.
you know?
And here we go.
Bachelor number 1,
Yes.
what's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good. Then you're really ready.
Bachelor number 1.
You're a dirty old man. Take it.
Come on over here.
Really?
Photographer, say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on, say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with a one answer. Well, as far as I can see, Cheryl and
At the time, that isn't the way people really thought about it. It isn't.
Mhm.
I mean, that's why he won, and they were all answering the same way, and when you watch other people, it was all very sexually, innuendo, right? It was all very kind
Mhm.
of, ooh, because that was kind of after you get out of the freedoms of the '60s and the '70s, everyone's kind of pushing the boundary a little, so
Yeah.
I don't think at the time it was too outrageous, but it certainly is looking back at it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because it's like, "Oh, that
But he was already embarrassed.
Oh, yeah, I know Chuck Berry.
Yeah, the Gong Show. He had all these things. He's a big producer. He had studios, and that's where this was filmed. This is one of many of his game shows, and he was kind of kind of that kind of guy too. He wasn't like a rapist and all that, but he was a
Yeah.
very, but it was a fun, one of the many fun shows and all that stuff. Like, so he just showed up and got on the game show. But by then he had already been a convicted rapist and a registered sex offender.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But is that under his alias name that he's
No.
convicted, or under?
No, under
Are you
this real name that, yeah.
Okay, so like him being a burger or Berger or
Yeah.
however you want to say it.
Depending on the day. No,
I'll just say burger. I have no effort right now. Words is hard.
Yeah.
But yeah. So him
He
going around using that name, that gave him security and kind of a shield that people couldn't see the true killer that he was, because Rodney
Right.
was nowhere to be found because he was a different dude. So how did he end up like getting caught? Like what happened?
Well, it was kind of brought on by the dating game from him being on it.
Okay.
Because really what happened was they had questioned him for different cases throughout the time, and he was a suspect and all that. But what really brought him to the lead was one of the detectives at home, and this repeat of this show came on, and it was Rodney Alcala, and it for some reason made him think to look at Alcala more thoroughly. So that was really the initiating of it. Right.
Okay.
And so, and Alcala had, as you see in the movie, had attacked a girl. And this girl, they were out in a, I want to say kind of a park overlooking a beach. It was kind of a beachy park. It wasn't really, it's hard to explain. And so anyway, so they had, he had assaulted her there, and done what he did. And when she woke up, because he had choked her into passing out, she had heard him crying. And so then instead of running or trying to fight him off, she pretended to like him and to be his friend. And so
reverse psychology.
Yeah, and it worked. And he actually, so he didn't kill her. And she even said, "Oh, I think it would be great if we were together," and made it like it could be a relationship, right? And so, and when they were driving, so they were driving down the hill, heading back toward the city, and they stopped for him to use the bathroom. I'm trying to remember. And so when they did, she had ran into a hotel across the way and told everyone she'd been attacked and the whole thing, and called the cops. And so they eventually caught him from that situation. So that's kind of like the thing that turned it for him, where when he did get arrested for that was the last time he was ever allowed out on his own.
Sweet. Finally.
Yeah.
The devil's in jail.
Well, the devil's in jail, but when you think about it, they had several trials for this guy over and over. And,
why? He's guilty. Just
well, the thing is, the problem. Well, this is the problem. Because in California, in a lot of places, the death penalty will always get rejected from their Supreme Court, not the country's, but from theirs. So he gets charged with the death, and he gets convicted with death penalty. It gives you an automatic appeal, goes up, and of course he gets it gets overturned, and they go through it. That's one problem they have. Another big problem they had was again, witnesses, and being able to convict them on that. And then the last, or I don't know, I say the final problem, but the other thing is that he, with one of the particular cases he was involved in, he had taken a girl up to a mountain area and killed her. And there was a forestry ranger, a woman park ranger, who had witnessed some of it. And eventually, and she didn't tell anybody. And then she didn't tell the cops. And eventually they found her. She told the story. But then when she went into trial, she changed the story. And then she ended up needing psychological help, and she had a couple of breakdowns. So they overturned the whole conviction on that because of the way she was. Do you know what I mean? It was like they had all sorts of, it was really crazy. It was a crazy from the start, from the very first trial right through. I put a lot of the highlights of each of the trials in so you can kind of understand how crazy it went. And Alcala himself acted as his own attorney, his own defense attorney.
Oh my God.
A couple of cases. Well, and you know what he would do? He would question himself, and he would have a different voice as the attorney. And then he would sit and ask.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Then
What
you know
a
what?
learning.
And to present his case, this is funny. Now, I don't know if you remember the movie Alice's Restaurant.
Yes, I do. I haven't seen it in forever, but I do remember it
He
vaguely.
made the jury watch that. That was his presentation, his defense.
Are you serious?
Yeah. He made everyone in the court watch Alice's Restaurant, and that was his defense.
And he was probably so mad why he got a guilty verdict, right?
Yeah, he was. And then on another one of his cases, after that was overturned, he showed them the dating game, his appearance on that. That's what he showed the defense, or as his defense, that's what he showed the jury. And he's saying, and why he did that was because in that locker the cops had found in Seattle, they also found jewelry and victims. They figured ones he had taken from his victims. And one pair of earrings belonged to, I'm not sure if it was Tally Shapiro or Samso, the other girl, Samso. And so she, her mother said, yeah, that was what I give my daughter. That's the earrings I give her, right? So he showed this his dating game appearance and had it, enlarged and said, see the earrings I'm wearing? That's the ones. That's not the ones that this girl had. They're my earrings. Like things like that. He was absolutely crazy. Just
Yeah,
so
he
you
was.
know. She was absolutely crazy.
Honestly, I don't think he was human. It's just begin with. There's something off about this guy right now. That's crazy. Okay, well, Alan, thank you so much. Oh my God, this has been a very fun and enlightening, and it's sad, and this really does shed a light on mental health. But the Killing Game, which is about the real Rodney Alcala, written by our guest here, Alan R. Warren. Now, Alan, you have a website, and that is www.alanrwarren.com. Is that correct?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, and you can actually hear you on multiple radio shows across the country. I mean, you have a mystery radio show that is heard on KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle and is syndicated in many markets. And you're also on 106.5 FM KCAA in Los Angeles and Riverside and Palm Springs in Utah at KYAH 540 AM in Salt Lake City and KNX at 11 a.m. Phoenix. Yeah, you get around in the radio world. I mean, and you have an illustrious career. You've had many books. So people, please check out The Killing Game. I'll have a link for that in today's description, along with a link to his website, which that's where, if you want to know anything and everything about Alan R. Warren, it's right on the site. So just go there, and and please, guys, please rate and review these books. It's very important.
Only if you like them.
Yeah, only if you like them. Jeez, yeah, we don't. If you don't like the book, keep it to yourself. It's okay. But
just don't like it.
I urge her. Hey, you don't even have to write something. It's just a 5-star, whatever. Just show your support for these authors so that way those books can get seen more. And thank you so much, Alan. We're definitely going to have you on again here soon. Maybe we'll talk the Menendez brothers, or I don't know, maybe Casey Anthony. Maybe we'll pick a topic and just riff on it. But thank you, and thank you all, and I hope to see you all next week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot. And until our next case, my armchair detectives, stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay aware. I'll see you right here next week on Mysteries, Mayhem, and Merlot.